But if you follow me on Twitter, you'll know that there's been times where I start getting into Twitter wars with Andrew Breitbart because he's so crazy. And I got to say, politics aside, there's a quality of Breitbart that reminds me a little bit about Marin. They both, like, I don't know what it is about those guys, but there are some people who I meet, and I don't even see their face. I just see one huge button. Like, I know exactly how to push their buttons and drive them crazy. And Breitbart's one of those guys. If you go back and look for, some of those exchanges, I drive Breitbart crazy, and he can't figure out how to, and this is really sophomoric stuff I'm talking about here. These are not policy arguments. I've had policy arguments with people on Twitter too. These are not those. These are literally like the stuff that you would hear if you were like in 7th grade and two kids were on the playground. But, with Breitbart, this is what he trades in. This is his only currency. You understand that that's all he does. And so my feeling is that if I have the time and I can take him off his game, so that he's not doing evil things like manipulating video or lying on his website that gets into the bloodstream of the right wing, then that's good. And so I like to fuck with him. And he, for the life of him, he just can't figure out who I am. And I don't blame him. He's trying to figure out, like, who do I work for? Why am I doing this? And it really is not apparent. And it's a question I ask myself. I mean, I once spent months. I have 200 pages of an exchange that I had with Nigerian email scams. I have 3 or 4 phone calls that I recorded. And my wife just looks at me. She says, "Why are you doing that?" And so I had to pretend like, I'm going to turn it into a one-man show, just to justify why I was spending all this time doing this. Why every time the phone rang at our house, at our apartment, I had to turn on a tape recorder because I thought it could be these Nigerians calling me from Nigeria. And I will post that someday. It's now 10 years old. But and so I just get caught on these jags. And so I love to shit on Breitbart. And this is another classic example of Breitbart. We all remember, I hope you all looked at the video of Michelle Bachmann when she gave her State of the Union rebuttal. I guess that's what you could call it. When she was talking to her invisible friends to the right of the camera feed. So Breitbart, and we all figured out the story that there was 2 cameras and she was talking to the Tea Party one. And then it became this beautiful metaphor about how you cannot talk to the Tea Party and not seem crazy to the rest of the country. And Breitbart jumped on this story and realized that this was a plot. Yes. A plot by CNN to make Michelle Bachmann look crazy. It was a secret plot hatched in a basement somewhere. How can we possibly take this incredibly sane woman, Michelle Bachmann, who believes all these incredibly sane and measured and reasoned things? How can we take her and make her look foolish and crazy? We've got to come up with some type of super plan. We must use our operatives at CNN to plant a camera to her right. Use that as the feed, and then the world will think that she's crazy. And of course, this is what Andrew Breitbart reported. He said CNN sabotaged Michelle Bachmann's Tea Party response by setting up a camera in such a way to make her look crazy. Well, Whoops. Turns out that Fox News was responsible for the setting up that camera and that video feed. Whoops.
Hey, what happened?
Fox News set up the news feed. Oh my God, you realize what this means. Fox News is with them. So Breitbart had to rescind that. Like he has, there's almost no story that Andrew Breitbart comes out with that isn't completely fictional. It's just a question of how fictional is with him.
He just seems like he's getting sloppier and sloppier as it goes along. I mean,
No, he's always been sloppy. It's just that
before,
now,
at least he had some kind of like he could get away with it a little bit. Now it's just
well,
it's not even trying. You know?
Well, what's happening with Breitbart is two things. One, people are actually scrutinizing everything he says now because he has such a record and a reputation of fabricating things. And then the second thing is because he's getting less acclaim after the whole Shirley Sherrod thing. And after, his little protege got arrested, O'Keefe, and after it came out that all of O'Keefe's stuff were doctored too, he's got to get more and more outrageous and crazy to maintain his viewership. And so Breitbart's got a real problem. I think deep down, this is the thing with Andy Breitbart. Deep down, I think he really wants to be accepted in the mainstream. I mean, I think that's why he left working for Drudge, because he felt that it tainted him too much. And maybe I think Drudge was up to things that actually disgusted Breitbart. I wouldn't know what those things are, but I can only imagine. And I think Breitbart, actually, they were so repellent, they had nothing to do with ideology. It had to do with like personal behavior that Breitbart may have gotten too disgusted. And then I think the reason why Breitbart went and tried to work for Ariana Huffington at the beginning of the Huffington Post before it even actually formed was because I think he wanted to actually be part of this group that he aspires to. I mean, the guy he grew up in Westwood, in California, sort of in the shadow of Hollywood and Beverly Hills. And I think he wanted to be, one of those sort of like Hollywood lefties. And I think what must have happened is he got rejected by them. And that's why everything he builds, like he built like this big Hollywood site to mock Hollywood. Like who gives a shit about it? I mean, who gives a crap about Hollywood enough to set up that whole thing? But I think it's all for him very, very personal. And I think he feels rejected by these people. And this is his way of saying, like, if you're not going to let me into the club that I think is cool, then I'm going to start my own club saying how much you guys are not cool. And it's sort of that classic case of a guy sort of projecting onto this club a certain exclusivity that nobody else really sees or cares about. So I think he really wanted to be mainstream, and now that he can't, he can't even go far enough on the right. I honestly do feel bad for the guy to a certain extent. And then I don't. I have a moment where I do, and then I don't. So I just hope he gets better soon.